I'd love to talk about dairy and the gut, like milk and the gut, because milk, you'll often hear people go, oh, well, milk, like it soothes my gut, or yogurt soothes my gut or whatnot. And I just wondered, what is the reality of dairy products and the gut? What is the impact on them? Are they beneficial? Are they negative? What's your kind of take on it?
Because I guess there's such a part of the modern Western diet. They're probably 20% of calories for many people who eat a standard Western diet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, as I said earlier, the standard Western diet's pretty much designed to cause poor digestive health. And I believe that a huge component of that gut unfriendliness is the high intake of dairy, particularly the high intake of dairy milk that is taken for granted in high income countries, thanks to the way that our economy and food systems work, right? And I mean, there's no doubt that milk has been important culturally and economically for a long, long time. And I think if you delve into the reasons behind all of that, you find out that it's got nothing to do with human health really in the modern era, and certainly nothing to do with digestive health in the modern era. It's more about cultural and economic reasons, right? Now, milk, I'm going to say something very controversial. Are you ready?
Yes. Hit us out.
Milk is for babies.
No way. As in breast milk.
Way.
As in breast milk.
As
whey.
in milk.
I like whey.
No way. No, but milk, unless you're talking about a plant-based milk, Dave, all mammalian milk is breast milk, right? So human milk, cow's milk, goat milk, dog milk,
elephant milk,
whatever, elephant milk, whatever you're talking about, any mammal that makes milk, they're making it for their baby, right? And when it comes to humans, milk is for human babies. When we're little babies, and this is very relevant to you at the moment, David, God knows, with a little baby in the house, of course. And milk is for babies, and human mothers produce breast milk to feed their little babies. And if there's an issue with the breast milk and mom isn't able to feed, then we're very lucky that we have these replacement milks that are also made from other forms of breast milk, from cow's milk or other milks, or sometimes made from soya and made to mimic the contents of breast milk so that the baby can still get the benefits of drinking milk. So milk contains a sugar called lactose, a sugar which is broken down by the baby's gut into simple sugars called glucose and galactose. Now, in order for a baby because a baby needs a lot of energy, for all of that growing that's happening, okay? So breast milk is very high in sugar, very high in lactose. And the baby breaks that down using enzymes called lactase enzymes. And a baby's gut produces a lot of that enzyme because babies eat exclusively milk. And as they get older, and as they move beyond the point where they are breastfeeding and they start to move on gradually on to solid foods and start to enjoying the foods that their mom and dad and brothers and sisters enjoy, those lactase enzymes begin to reduce quite dramatically. And once we've aged out of breastfeeding, we no longer need those enzymes, and your gut stops making them. And at that point, if we consume a significant amount of breast milk, whether it's human or cow, as an adolescent or adult, that lactose doesn't get digested. That milk sugar doesn't get digested. And it arrives in our bowel and it feeds bacteria, leading to this kind of bacterial overgrowth, bloating, diarrhea, and chronic inflammation. At least that's true for about 70% of the world's adult population. Now, due to a genetic quirk, the world's Caucasians, so white Europeans, remain abnormally lactose tolerant into adulthood. So for most white Europeans or Caucasians or people descended from Europeans, they are able to consume the lactose into adulthood. But even in these individuals, even in Caucasians or white Europeans, by the time they're in their 30s or 40s, they're very aware of the fact that if they drink a pint of milk or have a milkshake, that they're going to get bloating and indigestion and maybe diarrhea. And that's the inherent human state of being lactose intolerant, which is the normal healthy human. And beyond that, I mean, this is an issue I see at my clinic all the time. I'll tell you an anecdote from clinic this week. I mean, I saw a young woman this week who has been seeing gastroenterologists for 10 years.
Wow.
And she had very significant digestive health problems that began when she was a teenager. She was telling me that she was doing sports as a teenager, and her coach noticed the symptoms. That's when they first came to light during her teens. And she would get bloating and her belly would distend, and she'd have an urgent need to go to the toilet. She would never have a formed bowel movement. She always kind of needed to know where the bathroom is. And of course, because she had symptoms, which is a really sensible thing to do, she'd seen her doctor, she'd gotten checked out. And over the 10 years, she'd had CT scans, MRI scans, endoscopies, duodenal biopsies, and 2 colonoscopies, and a test called a small bowel capsule endoscopy. Now, all of those tests are very helpful, and these are things that I use all the time at my clinic, but her symptoms hadn't improved. So she'd had all of these checks. She'd seen tons of doctors who had given her the line, oh, you have irritable bowel syndrome. You just have to get used to it. So she came to see me because she said, look, I've been told I just have to get used to this, but I'd like to look a bit further into it. Why do I have this problem? And, we went through a dietary survey, and, she liked consuming milk, dairy milk, and had been educated to believe that that's a normal, healthy thing for adults to consume. And so she'd already had every test we could think of. Maybe we did a few more, which came back normal. But for her, it was just having the permission to quit dairy milk is what resolved her symptoms. And I see that at clinic all the time. People getting their digestive health back by simply stopping with the breast milk. And, we know that about 40% of patients who've been given a diagnosis of irritable bowel syndrome will readily identify dairy milk as a trigger for them. And more than 50% of people with these unexplained abdominal symptoms will, if you do a test for lactose intolerance, they'll come back positive for that test. So dairy-free is one of the first steps I take with many of my patients at clinic, and it's often incredibly successful. And no surprise then that all of the recipes in the Gut Health Revolution course, and all of the recipes in your book, and all of the recipes in my book are dairy-free because, again, controversially, milk is for babies.
I like the way you full circle there, Al. Very
Dairy
sweet,
milk.
very good.
And when you're saying dairy milk, you're not talking about chocolate bars. You're talking about just cow's milk. Isn't that right?
Or,
just to
or
clarify.
goat milk or elephant milk or rat
Yes.
milk, whatever your form of breast milk of choice.
Yeah, and I think people who drink milk, when they hear you saying things like, oh, goat milk or rat milk or dog milk, they might feel a bit triggered, They might say, are you saying that I'm, rat milk makes me feel nauseous, but I like to have, lovely, frosty, fat-free milk in the morning out of the fridge. But if you really think of it, I think if you just, the next time you pick up a carton of dairy milk, just think to yourself, milk is for babies. It's bloody obvious, So although humans have developed a lot of cultural reasons, and to be quite honest, and maybe it's a topic for another guest or another podcast. I think the fact that white Europeans tolerate milk much better than any other race in the world has a lot to do with the fact that dairy milk is promoted globally as something that makes you healthy, when there's no evidence to suggest that it is. But for the very vast majority of people, they just can't stomach milk, dairy milk. So promoting it as a global health food is very dishonest and inherently discriminatory. But for white Caucasians, that lactose, the fact that milk is for babies will certainly catch up with you by the time you're in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, in my experience.